Come on, good to see you, brother. How you doing? How you been? Pablo, good to see you as well. Evening. How you doing? Hello, family. Chabs, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, Professor Miles and the XRP crew. Let's go, funky brother. How you doing? Hello, Miles and CMF. Glenda, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Mike, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good day. How you been? Joe, good to see you as well. Evening. How you doing? Manny, evening. Good to see you as well. How you doing? Joe's good to see you as well. How you doing? Evening. Dennis, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? So, by the time everyone tunes in one by one, let me give you a breakdown of what we're going to go through on tonight's live show. So we have a mixture of news to go through on tonight's live show. News regarding the Fed reports that are possibly coming out and how they can impact the market moving forward. I have updates on the Ripple matter as well regarding what does the SEC think about this whole situation. So we know what Ripple thinks about this whole situation. In Ripple's eyes, it's pretty much a green light. And in my eyes, there's also a green light as well. Now, we haven't heard from the SEC's perspective until now. So I have an update on what the SEC, or essentially how the SEC feels about this whole scenario of Ripple's $125 million fine. We're going to go through that on tonight's live show as well. So we're going to go through the SEC perspective on the Ripple case. I have an update on that. And we're also going to be talking about another perspective on the SEC case as well from a lawyer on how he sees the case weighing out regarding, because there's a slight issue on the matter as well, which is a lot of people are still confused about the part where Ripple's not allowed to sell XRP, but in reality, they are allowed to sell XRP. So I'm going to essentially rectify that issue once again and break it down so that everybody has a better understanding that Ripple can sell XRP. It's not that they're not allowed to anymore. There are multiple ways around it, particularly one way that Ripple's been using for a very long time, and it doesn't fall under the SEC's radar. It doesn't break their injunction in any sort of a way. So I want to go into detail about that matter as well, so everybody has a better understanding, because there's a lot of things going around right now on X especially, or even on TikTok. There's a lot of perspectives coming out on the matter regarding Ripple, and 99% of the perspectives coming out are pretty much wrong. I've seen so many perspectives on the Ripple case that are just out of spite from influencers. I don't know why, but there's also, I've seen so many perspectives that are just wrong. People are giving out perspectives when they don't have a background in law or economics or any sort of business, any sort of a way. So I'm going to rectify a lot of wrong misinformation inside the space. Because I do have a background in business, finance, tech, law, and cybersecurity. So I'm going to be giving a better perspective on the matter. I'm also going to go through a lawyer's perspective and the SEC's perspective on this whole case, which is quite important as well. So we're going to go through that. We're also going to go through some other news on tonight's live show regarding El Salvador and the International Monetary Fund. We're going to go through that on tonight's live show as well. We're also going to be talking about Franklin Templeton's essentially unveiling their new money fund and which particular blockchain Franklin Templeton has chosen for their money fund. We're also going to be talking about tonight's live show regarding the crypto-friendly bank that's now being investigated by the SEC. It seems like the SEC, or essentially the feds, right now have a new target, and it's no longer Ripple. It's a crypto-friendly bank is basically who they're aiming for next as their new targets to go after. We're also going to be talking about the groundbreaking new offer for Bitcoin, essentially, from a US platform. We're also going to be talking about on tonight's live show regarding Brazil and the whole Solana ETF matter. And is it a good thing? Is it actually going to play out or not? We're also going to be talking about the United Kingdom and the Financial Conduct Authority on tonight's live show as well. And we're going to be going through some other matters as well regarding two senior Fed officials who have came out and given their perspectives on how they think the US economy is playing out. So we do know for a fact now that Japan's economy is not obviously doing the brightest, but Japan's essentially Japan's government has decided not to intervene and make things worse. So they've decided to take a step back. But the US is now back in the picture of, are we going to go into a recession, or is this going to play out, and so on. So we're going to go through some perspectives on tonight's live show, but we're also going to talk about the whole Ripple scenario, because we need to, because there's too much confusion, and I want to put an end to the confusion inside the whole Ripple scenario, which there shouldn't be any confusion, but I understand why there's confusion, because too many perspectives are out there, and about 99% of them are wrong. And yeah, we're going to go through that. So welcome to the CMF live show. If you're watching this for the first time ever, welcome to the CMF live show. This live show stands for Crypto Mars Family, hence CMF. And if you're watching this for the first time ever, welcome. If you're a regular, let's go CMF. On this live show, I talk about the most recent things that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, things that matter for you to have a better understanding of the world, genuinely shifting over towards a complete digital era. And the disclaimer of this live show, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. We also have a Telegram group as well, which is completely free. Anybody's more than welcome to join it. We only have one rule, just essentially treat each other with respect. Now, the first news we're going to go through on tonight's live show is regarding the whole Ripple matter, because I want to update everybody and stop the confusion inside the space before we move on to the rest of the news. So, because it is quite a crucial matter that needs to be rectified. And I feel like I'm the only one that can rectify it, because I've seen too much misinformation out there. Now, before we go through that, let's just go inside the comment section first, but we are going to rectify the whole Ripple scenario. Let's see where we were. Dennis, good to see you. How you doing? Joe's good to see you. How you doing? Lena, I hope you're good, Miles. I'm doing great, Lena. How you doing? It seems XRP has started the bull run as the markets are all in green. Yep. Comatose, good to see you. How you doing? Morning, Miles on CMF. Shelly, good to see you. How you doing? Morning. Good evening, Miles on CMF. Free and Feather, good to see you. How you doing? Semper, evening, Miles and Crypto Peeps. Good to see you as well, Semper. How you doing? All have to do is stick to the rules. Facts. Let's go, JP. What's up, Miles and family? Bone Crusher, good to see you. How you doing? Hello, Miles and CMF family. Anna, good to see you. How you doing? Hey, Miles and CMF. Solomon, good to see you. How you doing? Good evening, Miles and CMF. David, good to see you. How you doing? Ripple just has to stick to the rules that the judge set. In a very simple way, yes. But now, Jim, good to see you. How you doing? Perfect timing, Jim. I'm about to explain the scenario. Okay, so regarding the whole Ripple case, there's still some confusion going around inside the crypto space, which there shouldn't be. When we can expect XRP to surge now that the case is finished, I'm going to be talking about that as well. But the first one I'm going to be talking about, the first topic I'm going to be talking about is the confusion that needs to stop. Some people are still arguing that Ripple paying $125 million is a bad thing, and it makes Ripple's credit report look bad. I saw one. I'm not going to name any influencers. I'm not going to name any people. But I'm just going to, take parts of their tweets and explain to you. So some people have tweeted, or particular people have tweeted, that essentially Ripple paying $125 million is bad for their credit report. And in reality, it isn't, okay? Because Ripple still has their contracts in place. None of Ripple's partnerships have dropped them at all. Since this news came out that Ripple has to pay $125 million, if it was a bad thing on their credit report, their partnerships would have tanked, or some of their partnerships would have dropped them by now, which in reality, they haven't. So is it a bad thing paying $125 million? No. If you understand basic economics, you understand it's not really a bad thing. So for anybody that's tweeting out $125 million is bad for essentially Ripple's credit report, it's embarrassing. Stop tweeting out that. Because when I see grown-ass man or grown-ass people clickbaiting people, is pathetic and embarrassing. So if you're the type of person that's clickbaiting information about Ripple, it's embarrassing. Stop it. You're a grown-ass man. So for anybody that's tweeting out is the $125 million is bad for Ripple's credit score, it isn't. If it was bad, their contracts would have dropped, but they haven't. So just put it in a more simpler way for you. The other factor, I've seen people also tweet out on the matter of, the SEC can appeal, which they can if they wanted to. Will they appeal? No. And if they do, will it get accepted? Hell no. No judge is going to take that case up on them at all anymore. And the SEC is not also going to essentially be going forward with this in any sort of a way at all. And I do have an update on what the SEC thinks about this whole scenario as well, which I want to talk about as well. But before I go into that, let's talk about the injunction scenario. So a lot of people are also tweeting out that Ripple is not allowed to sell XRP anymore. And if they want to sell XRP, they have to ask Gary Gensler or the SEC. which is false. So Ripple doesn't have to ask the the SEC or Gary Gensler to sell XRP. There are ways around it that are fully within the legal system and that are not in gray areas in any sort of a way. So one move that Ripple has been doing for quite a while is selling XRP through their subsidiary based out of Singapore. Within the law of Singapore, within the Singaporean authority, Ripple is allowed to sell XRP through their subsidiaries. That's what they've been doing for a very long period of time. It's actually if anyone bothered to read the documents, it actually states that Ripple has been doing it. Most of their sales is actually outside of the US jurisdiction. So which means as they continue selling XRP through their subsidiary in Singapore to different institutions around the world, they're pretty much in the clear on the Singaporean authorities' regulations. They're pretty much in the clear because they have a license to operate in Singapore as well. So is Ripple allowed to sell XRP? Yes, they're still allowed to sell XRP. Is Ripple selling XRP going against their injunction? No, it's not going against their injunction in any sort of a way because they're not selling it how they used to. Remember, the fine that Ripple is paying, they're paying it because in the past, they used to sell it in a very oddly different type of way. And over time, Ripple changed the method that they sell their XRP in. That's why, essentially the fine is for a certain period of time. After that period of time, Ripple changed the method of how they sell XRP, which is selling it through their subsidiaries or through exchanges, for example. So no, Ripple, the question that everybody keeps on asking or everybody keeps on making random tweets about, and it's a pathetic attempt and embarrassing to be doing clickbait tweets. Especially as grown-ass man. I'm not going to name any influencers, but I've seen people tweeting out, regarding the matter of Ripple's not allowed to sell XRP. Yes, they are allowed to sell XRP. Or Ripple has to ask Gary Gensler or the SEC, or it goes against their injunction. No, they don't have to because there are methods where they don't have to ask Gary Gensler or the SEC, which is by selling through their subsidiaries or through exchanges. So they're not going to be falling under injunction or getting contempt or getting seized or something like that on that sort of scenarios. It's never going to happen. And Ripple has changed their methods. Ripple has made it very clear that they've changed their methods on how they sell XRP. So can Ripple still sell XRP? Yes. Do they have to ask the SEC or it goes against their injunction for selling XRP? No, they don't have to ask the SEC. There are multiple methods that Ripple is still using, which is one of them through their subsidiaries outside the United States, and the others is through exchanges. So if anybody's telling you right now that Ripple can't sell XRP to institutions anymore because it goes against their injunction, they don't know what the F they're talking about. So if you're the type of person that's tweeting out that Ripple can't sell XRP because it goes against their injunction, they can't sell to institutions, you don't know what you're talking about. Stop talking, please. Now, this is why I always say, if you don't have essentially an understanding of how the law works, please don't comment. Like, if you're a person that wants to learn, that's amazing. But if you're a person that claims to understand the law and then tweets random information that they just pull out of thin air, please stop tweeting it. Because all you're doing is creating clickbait tweets that confuses people and makes them essentially make the wrong move. And yes, people shouldn't listen to random people online. But unfortunately, people do listen to random people online. Sometimes they make mistakes. But how to stop that whole scenario is, if you don't understand how the law works, don't mention it. So, on the matter of can Ripple still sell XRP? Yes, Ripple can still sell XRP to institutions. Do they have to ask the SEC? No, they don't have to ask the SEC. It does not go against their injunction if they don't ask them, because there are multiple methods they can use, which is one through their subsidiaries, second is through their exchanges. So if anybody was confused on that matter, don't be. They can still sell XRP to institutions. And the $125 million, does it make Ripple look bad paying $125 million in fines? No, it doesn't make Ripple look bad. It doesn't make their credit score. One person tweeted out, it makes their credit score look bad. It doesn't make their credit score look bad, especially not in front of institutions. Because if it did make Ripple's credit score look bad in front of institutions, their partnerships would have dropped by now, which they haven't. So stop embarrassing yourself, whoever these people are. I'm not going to name them, by sending out pathetic tweets, especially if you're a grown-ass man. It's embarrassing. Now, the perspectives now. So the SEC finally breaks after the SEC finally breaks silence after Ripple's victory. The US, so this is a perspective from the SEC on this whole matter. The SEC finally breaks silence after Ripple's victory. The US Securities and Exchange Commission has weighed in on the final judgment in the Ripple case. The agency told Fox Business reporters Eleanor Terrett that the court had addressed the eagerness of the company's conduct. The district judge, Torres, acknowledged that Ripple had committed a serious offense. This is what the SEC has said, and in reality it wasn't. With its recurring securing law violations, the company was ordered to pay a rather hefty $125 million fine. And again, it wasn't a hefty $125 million fine. $125 million is absolute pennies to Ripple Labs. But what essentially the SEC was asking for $2 billion, that was a hefty fine. $2 billion is a hefty fine. $125 million is not a hefty fine. It's about 6% of what they were asking. As court, after this is what also the SEC said. This is all the things that the SEC said. The SEC also went on to say, as court after court has stated, the securities laws apply when firms offer and sell investment contracts, regardless of the technology or labels that they use, the agency added. At the same time, Torres significantly reduced the amount of civil penalties that were requested by the SEC. The agency wanted the company to shell out as much as $2 billion. Even though Ripple expectedly framed the final judgment, the SEC claimed, Ripple framed the judgment as a big win for the embattled company. Judge Torres believes that the SEC also has cause for celebration since the fine is significantly higher than the $10 million that the San Francisco-based company was hoping for. Yes, Ripple was hoping for $10 million. SEC was asking for $2 billion. But who do you think came out in a clear winner? Do you think the SEC won? Well, the SEC is trying to say that we got the better hand of this scenario. You were asking for $2 billion, you got $125 million. Yes, Ripple was asking for $10 million, but who's closer? The $2 billion or the $10 million? While it seems unlikely that the SEC might appeal, the court's most recent order on remedies, it might still take an issue with the July 2023 summary judgment ruling that recognized secondaries XRP sales as non-securities. They're not going to go after any of the scenarios. Now, despite some uncertainty surrounding the SEC's appeal plans, the XRP has experienced massive price rallies over 24 hours. In the past 24 hours, it has become one of the most traded cryptocurrencies globally. In South Korea has been the one essentially managing and attracting the bigger daily trading volumes. More people in South Korea were buying XRP than they were buying Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana combined following the court rulings. If you didn't know that, now you know. So, is the SEC going to appeal? No. Look, if the SEC, I revealed this yesterday as well, if the SEC appeals, all that matters is, will the appeal get granted? And the answer is no. There's not a single judge on this planet that will grant SEC any sort of appeals against Ripple Labs' case. I can bet both my lungs on it. Now, regarding the Ripple hurdles of the XRP, sales to institutions, as I explained as well. But here's also perspective. So, Ripple clears hurdles. XRP sales to institutions remains unaffected by SEC ruling. XRP sales, just for the people that are still tweeting out random information and saying Ripple can't sell XRP anymore to institutions, XRP sales to institutions remains unaffected by SEC ruling. Judge Torres finally issued a ruling in the Ripple versus SEC lawsuit, ordering the blockchain payments company to pay the regulator $125 million in civil penalties. Immediately, the XRP community broke into celebration as the penalty was way below the $2 billion that the SEC was initially asking for. Since then, legal experts have been helping the community break down the implications of the ruling on the token, and according to one of the most respected minds in the crypto legal space, the impact will not be as far-reaching as initially feared. Attorney Jeremy Hogan took to X to break down the rulings. First, he noted that most of Ripple's sales were outside of the US, which they are, and those were unaffected by the ruling, which they are also. They're not affected any sort of way by the SEC. The lawyer stated that the company can continue engaging in sales despite the ruling. Yes, Ripple can continue selling XRP to institutions despite the rulings. They can, 100%. One of the concerns after the ruling was whether the Ripple could still sell to American institutions. While it can generate enough funds selling outside the US market, local sales are important in offering users enough liquidity and building on the networks that Ripple and the rest of the XRP ecosystem have established over the past decade. According to Hogan, these sales can continue with a minor tweak. He stated that Ripple can still sell XRP to institutions in the United States as long as it sells it under exemption to registration. There are like 5 major exemptions that is much easier to fit an exemption when selling to businesses. Now, the other perspective. The lawyer also noted that the ruling had significantly failed to include on-demand liquidity sales in the rulings. Now, This means that if the SEC believes that Ripple has failed to abide by the rulings, it can file for essentially contempt, which I revealed yesterday, in the court and present its evidence. However, the company can argue that the ODL sales have no expectation of profits, as the participants only hold the tokens for seconds for the purpose of listing payments only. That is true. Ripple has contracts where if they sell XRP to institutions, it states that they're only holding it for a few seconds because the institutions are going to use it. So you see, when Ripple sells XRP to institutions, the institutions aren't going to be holding it, they're going to be using it. So if they're going to be holding it, you can say securities purposes or contract purposes or breaches of contracts or breaches of injunction, because they're holding it to let it grow in value. And in reality, they're not. Any institution that buys essentially XRP from Ripple, they're actually buying it to use it, not to hold it so it grows in value. So Hugin further believes that the SEC, that since Ripple's lawyers have been sitting on the summary judgment for a year now, the company has most likely made changes to how it handles its XRP sales locally. Yes, Ripple has made changes to how they sell their XRP locally. These changes will likely stay in place after yesterday's ruling, and the SEC is unlikely to file another legal action against the firm. Yeah, because Gary Gensler will never be appealing this case or in any sort of a way. If he does, it's out of spite, and he knows that he won't be approved in any sort of way. But yes, as also Hugin has just stated, the lawyer has just also stated, is that Ripple has found another way to sell their XRP locally inside the United States that, falls within the law. It's not in gray areas. It doesn't affect their injunction in any sort of a way, which is their contracts where they sell XRP, they're supposed to use it. They're not supposed to hold it for it to grow in value, so it doesn't affect their injunction, doesn't affect their securities, breach of contracts, or any scenarios like that. So if you were wondering, can Ripple sell XRP? Yes, Ripple can still sell XRP. Can Ripple sell XRP to institutions in the United States? Yes, they can sell XRP to the United States institutions. Yes, they can do that as well. Do they have to let the SEC know? No, they don't have to let the SEC know, because there are multiple ways of doing it, which they're already doing it, and therefore they don't need to report it, and it doesn't affect their injunction. So if anybody's still spreading misinformation that Ripple can't sell XRP to institutions, you're a liar. If anybody starts spreading information that Ripple can't sell XRP to institutions in the United States, you're a liar. Stop. It's absolutely pathetic for anybody that's tweeting these things out. And also for anybody that's saying that Ripple's credit score looks bad now, they have to pay $125 million. It doesn't. If you had a basic understanding of how businesses operate, you wouldn't be saying that. So, hoping that rectified the problems, because factual informations are always above opinions. I've always said this, everybody's entitled to an opinion, but opinions are not correct and facts are facts. Now, I'm also not going to be revealing who those people are who tweeted out these random informations. Now, let's go inside the comment section first before we get on to the other news, because we still have a lot of major news to go from tonight's live show as well. Let's see where we were. We were at here. When can we expect XRP to surge now that the case is finished? Give it a little bit of time, because XRP needs 3 green lights. I said this a very long time ago. By a very long time ago, I said in 2023, going into 2024, that Ripple needs 3 green lights. I said first green light is going to be the case, and it's going to end in 2024. I said this in 2023, by the way. I said Ripple is going to end their case in 2024, and that's going to be the first green light. I said the second green light, it has to come from the regulations. We need regulations for XRP to be able to operate on a large-scale basis. And I said the third green light is adoption. So first green light is case, which we technically got. Second green light, we need that essentially is the regulations, and the third green light is adoption. So right now, the regulations need to be in place, because of Ripple's clientele. Ripple works with banks and institutions, and banks and institutions don't like to essentially operate in gray areas. Banks and institutions like to operate within the law, so they don't get sued by the SEC or the CFTC later on somewhere down the road and pay a fine. So first green light is the case for Ripple. Second green light is regulations, and third green light is adoption from the banks and institutions. So that is how the step is going to be. I laid out this step in 2023. It's still the same step that is going to go forward this year onwards as well. It needs 3 green lights. We got 1 green light. We need 2 more. Rachel, good to see you. How you doing? And regarding regulations, are we far from regulations? No, not that far in any sort of a way. Regulations are becoming much more stricter as we're going along this year. Rachel, good to see you. How you doing? Ripple took one of the team, they ventured into uncharted territory, and the SEC didn't do their job in the first place because there was no regulations for Ripple to follow. Not Ripple's fault. Also facts, what Stormy said. Therefore, they can go through Singapore to sell to US institutions. Exactly. Let's go, Shelly. Facts. Why didn't XRP pump to $5? The reason why XRP didn't pump to where you wanted to see it to pump. Some people wanted to see ridiculous numbers, and some people wanted to see just $1 or $2 from XRP. Okay, the reason why it didn't pump, and I revealed this yesterday, and the reason still stands, is because there's still too much confusion inside the crypto space. Some people are still confused on the matter of, is this case finally over? Some people are still confused on the matter of, is this good news or bad news for Ripple? Some people are still confused on the matter of, is the SEC going to appeal? Also, some people are accused on the matter of, is Ripple going to appeal? So they're staggered. They don't know which way to go right now. And I said this yesterday, and I'll say it again today. If people just tuned into this live show, they would have a better understanding on the matter, which is, don't be confused. It's over. I said, even if the SEC does try to appeal any part of this case, yes, they'll make the market volatile because too many people will believe, oh no, the SEC is back. But in reality, they'll get rejected. SEC are pathetic. Yes, I agree, Jim. What up, Miles and CMF? Hope all is well, though. Ray, good to see you. How you doing, brother? I apologize. I won't tweet again. JP, let's go. And what's up, Miles and CMF? Bill, good to see you. How you doing? Did I miss any news? Just the ones that we went through. Why is XRP still low? That's why it's low. There's still confusion. And the reason why people are getting confused is because people are randomly tweeting random information. Hope you're well, Miles. Let's go, Zach. How you doing? How you been? Miles, why isn't XRP pumping after the case? That's why it's not pumping. Miles, on which regulations do we wait for? Because stablecoin regulations are done and ready for use, right? Yes. Banking regulations. If that's us the case, can the regulations of stablecoins push XRP to high prices this year? They can push it to a certain price point. I thought XRP will do movements after the case is over, but still on the same position. That's why, Jim. 1 green light, 2 to go. Exactly. Some said after the case will pump and then come back down. It is going to. The SEC is going to 2-hole. Yes. Happy Pisces. Good to see you. How you doing? So when we expect XRP pump, I put life savings 2K into XRP. Jim, first of all, you shouldn't put your life savings into anything. But second, we need second green light. And we need the confusion to stop. The only way we can get the confusion to stop inside the crypto space is if people were more educated inside the crypto space. The people who share the news, the people who, pretend to help people inside the crypto space. If they were more educated, the confusion would stop inside the crypto space and people wouldn't be easily manipulated to doing the wrong thing inside the crypto space. But unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world. So stablecoin regulations are done. When will they use RLUSD? Well, RLUSD needs to be released first. It is going to be released this year, as Ripple has stated, but they've said it's going to be released towards the end of the year. Now, here is some perspective to also go through regarding the Fed reports, which is information that everybody needs to know about. Woodhouse, good to see you. How you doing? So, 2 senior Fed officials have commented on the US economy and how does that outlook look from their perspective. So 2 senior Fed officials have came out giving their perspectives on the market space. Now, we do know that Japan's market space is getting better because from Japan's perspective, the Japanese government came out and said that they're not going to be adding any more tensions inside the market space. The Japanese government decided not to poke the market as much as it is right now because it's very, very volatile. So they decided to take a step back, which is the best idea Japan could have possibly taken, which was the state to take 1 step back. And it's exactly what they did. So as Japan has taken 1 step back and not touching the market space because it's too volatile, the American market is back in the news again. So Japan's market space is out of the news and America's market space is back in the news. So 2 senior Fed officials. Chicago Fed President Austin echoed Bricken's cautious tone, saying that the Fed is monitoring market conditions and not letting them dictate policy. Goulsberg essentially noted that the key question is whether the labor market will hold steady or continue to weaken. He said it's important to look beyond employment figures and short-term data to assess the broader economic outlooks. Goolsby also said that the US economy is gradually returning to more normal conditions, but warned that the Fed needs to remain vigilant. If we are too tight for for too long, we need to watch the real economy. Goose B also said that, adding that the Fed needs to strike a delicate balance as it moves forward on a policy path. Brecken suggested that the country could enter a period of prolonged labor shortages, which could affect significant implications for future economic growth and policy decisions. Medical data company, also a medical data company, has decided to come out on the matter as well. And they essentially stated that they're going to be using, as the market is slightly volatile, they're going to be using Bitcoin also as a backing, like essentially MicroStrategy is using. So MicroStrategy was pretty much the original first Bitcoin ETF inside the market space. They buy Bitcoin, everybody buys MSTR stocks. So MicroStrategy is also medical data company has also decided to follow the exact same flows as MicroStrategy. So they see, as the market is volatile, pretty much best time for them to jump in. So medical data company OneMed latest to pursue Bitcoin treasury strategy after capital rise as well. The crypto investment fund of the off-chain capital management was among the investors in the private placements that funded the Bitcoin purchase. OneMedNet last month raised about $4.6 million in private placements and used $1.8 million of the proceeds to purchase Bitcoin, according to a press release, which came out today. Among the investors was the Off-Chain Capital, a crypto investment fund with ties to Block chairman Matthew, and Fortress founder Rob, which purchased a combination of shares and warrants in ONMD, which is a stock. OneMedNet has seen a stock price fall more than 90% since it came public via the SPAC deal late last year. It's up in its opportunity that if it works correctly, it can outperform Bitcoin's performance, Brian Dixon, CEO of the Off-Chain Capital, told CoinDesk. From our goal as an investor, we're looking for those discounts or value opportunities, and we work really hard to try to outperform Bitcoin. Dixon believes that it is crucial for the public companies to reinvest some of their cash into Bitcoin, rather than real estate stocks, bonds, or in order to add more shareholder value. He said, I think more and more public companies are going to wake up to the fact that if you don't have Bitcoin on your balance sheets, you are not being intelligent as a company, or for additional cash flows you have in terms where you allocate part of your treasury reserve strategies. In its off-chain, the OneMedNet is making similar arguments that of Michael Saylor said, whose MicroStrategy MSTR company has seen stock prices outperform the return of Bitcoin since the company began adding to crypto to its balance sheets. In August 2020, US-listed Selma Scientific and Japanese Metaplanet are among the publicly traded companies that are also following the footsteps of MicroStrategy. So with the two Fed reports essentially coming out, not the reports, but the two Fed senior officials coming out and saying the market seems a bit volatile, the US might be going next into some sort of a recession scenario or so on. There's a company that just came out of nowhere, essentially, quite a big company, a medical data company that's came out of nowhere and decided to use what the two Fed officials have came out with as information for them to jump inside the market space while it's volatile like this. Now, the question remains is, are we going to go into any sort of recession, which is a big thing on a lot of people's minds? And the answer is, from my perspective, is that we're going into voting, okay? Big thing right now. We're coming up to the US elections. Would it make sense going into a US election whilst being in a recession? No. Because if we go into a recession while we're going into voting for who's the next president of the United States, it's going to make the current administration, the current president, Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, and the Biden administration and Kamala Harris, it will make them look bad. So all this news that's going on right now, the US is going to go into recession, US is going to go into recession, and so on and so on. If we do go in a recession, it doesn't make sense, because the US government, and in general, all the tech companies and all the massive companies out there, the corporations, the World Economic Forum, the International Monetary Fund, they're all pretty much backing Sleepy Joe and Kamala Harris. So why would they make the US go into a recession while it's going into voting? Because it makes the Biden administration look bad, it makes Kamala Harris look bad, and it makes Trump look good for them. And it doesn't make any sense for them to do that, because all they have been doing is making Trump look bad in any category they possibly can, by going after anything that he's done wrong. Even in the 1980s, if Trump stole a packet of chewing gum from a shop in the 1980s, it will come up on the system and they try to sue him to the ground for it. So it doesn't make sense for them to make Trump look bad and make the US economy go into a recession when we're going into voting season, because it makes Kamala Harris look bad, it makes Sleepy Joe look bad, and it makes the Biden administration look bad if we go into a recession when we're going into voting. So technically, it doesn't make any sort of sense from a common sense perspective for them to go into a recession when we're going into voting. Now, what I'm also saying is, I'm not saying a recession can never happen, but I'm saying just weigh out the perspective of, we're going into voting, why would they make themselves look bad? Because if we go into a recession, it makes them look bad when we're going into voting, which means their votes would decrease. Because why would you vote for someone that puts you into a recession? Just think about it for a second. Why would anybody vote for Kamala Harris if we go into a recession? Because they made you go into a recession. Because the Biden administration made you go into a recession, and she's the VP. It's a big dilemma situation. It's not as easy as everybody thinks. And a lot of people would say, well, it's got nothing to do with Biden administration. It's got nothing to do with, Biden, the president of the United States. And it's got, to do with the banking systems or the inflation rate and so on and so on. And those are all valid points. But what you've got to understand is the entire game is rigged. And I'll tell you how rigged it is. 2008, when we had that massive crash, there was a company by the name of Moody's. Moody's had to do the ratings of, is the economy good or is the economy bad? And Moody's lied and said the economy is good. Then what happened? Market crash, 2008. So what I am trying to say is they can move around the numbers if they want to make something look good or make something look bad. Yes, in reality, we do have massive inflation issues. In reality, yes, they are printing too much. In reality, yes, the entire markets are absolutely damaged from left, right, and center. Yes, the reality of it is, yes, we are absolutely, I can't say, I'm trying to not use a particular word, but in reality, yes, we are effed completely. But what I am also trying to say is they can move around the numbers when they want to, because in 2008, Moody's moved around the numbers and said the economy is good and lied. In 2008, we crashed. Moody's knew we're not good, but they moved around the numbers. So if anybody that has the argument of, well, if we go into a recession, it's not Biden's fault. It's not the Biden administration's fault. It's not VP Kamala Harris's fault. If we go into a recession, it's, the banking systems, the inflation, the printing, and so on. Yes, all of those things matter. They're all valid points. But what I'm also trying to say is they can move around the numbers when they want to. Easily, they can move around the numbers when they want to. Because the entire game is rigged. If you don't know by 2024 that the entire game is rigged, then what planet are you living on? Because the entire game was rigged when it was so obvious in 2008, when they moved around the numbers. And what makes you think they won't do it again in 2024? So, now moving on to a different matter. Brazil and Solana ETFs. Now, Brazil is genuinely moving very quickly towards CBDCs and towards a whole innovation type of group when it comes to cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. Absolutely, they're spearheading it. I mean, Coinbase has opened up operations in Brazil. Ripple has opened up operations in Brazil. Kraken has opened up operations in Brazil because Brazil has came out on the matter of they want to be that crypto hub in pretty much, South America, essentially. In Latin America, they want to be the hub, the cryptocurrency hub. So Brazil, to launch their first Solana ETF, outpacing the United States. All eyes have focused on the Brazilian Securities and Exchange Commission, CVM, as crypto stakeholders anticipate the green light from the regulatory authority on a significant digital product. As per the report by XME, the leading Brazilian journal, the CVM nod will signal approval for the launch of the country's maiden Solana Exchange Traded Fund ETF. QR Asset Management leads the charge. The application for the Solana ETF has already been filed in by QR Asset Management, is managed by Vortex, a crucial figure in Brazil's finance and technology sector. QR Asset, a major player in the ecosystem, has well over $876 million in assets under management and more than 100,000 clients, essentially comprising both direct and indirect clients. The ETF will serve to expose Brazilian investors with exposure to Solana. According to Theodore Freire, the Chief Investment Officer of QR Asset, the launch of Solana's ETF confirms its commitment to providing, essentially diversifying the country's investors. They went on to say, "We are proud to be global pioneers in this segment. Brazil's position as a leading market for regulated investments in crypto assets is pretty much the future." Solana ETF to debut on Brazil's major exchange. Although the specific date of debut remains unknown, the fund will trade on Brazil's major stock exchange, B3. Notably, B3 handles the tradings of iShares Bitcoin Trust, BDR, IBIT39, BlackRock's first Brazilian Bitcoin ETF, which debuted in March of this year as well on the Brazilian exchange, B3. As per available information, the investment product's pricing will use the CME CF Solana Dollar Reference Index. This essentially collates different transaction data from major crypto exchanges to provide a reliable valuation of Solana. Is Brazil essentially taking a regulatory leap ahead of the US? An approval by the Brazilian Securities and Exchange Commission will position the South American nation as a trailblazer in the regulated crypto investment ecosystem. Analysts say that it will put Brazil ahead of the United States, which has already granted regulatory approval for Bitcoin ETFs and Ethereum ETFs. Although a couple of asset managers such as Van Eck and 21 Shares have indicated interest by filing applications with the US Securities Exchange Commission, the SEC's position on Solana remains vague. A notable lawsuit between Binance and the SEC offers a glimmer of hope for Solana that it would not be classified as a security. However, the ruling requires further explanations from the SEC, Gary Gensler. Yes, it definitely does receive. I mean, Gary Gensler is an absolute waste of time. He's going to be losing his job very soon either way. You know, if Trump, gets elected as president, we know for a fact Gary Gensler is losing his job. Even if Kamala wins by some miracle, she's going to be removing Gary Gensler from his position as well. Either way, Gary Gensler knows he's going to be removed from his position. Congressmen don't want Gary Gensler, and neither do any of the presidency candidates. Now, but Brazilians launching Solana ETFs on their B3 exchange, which is the exact same exchange that BlackRock has launched their Bitcoin ETF. Quite impressive for Solana. If this gets approved, the filings have already been done. If this gets approved, it could play out very majorly for Solana in a positive way, not overnight, but on a long-term basis. Now, the next news to go for tonight's live show is regarding a groundbreaking new offer for Bitcoin from the US platform, US Policy Group. Before we go through that, let's go to the comment section first. By the way, if you have any comments, this is a live show. It's a live Q&A. Don't be shy. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, you want to have a better understanding about anything, put it down in the comment section. I read everyone's comments one by one, give short, sweet, simple answers to get through everyone. Let's see where we were at. We were here. What are the ways? So stablecoin regulations are done. When will they? Well, they have to launch it. What are the other ways that they can sell to U.S. institutions through exchanges as well, or do they have to report through this avenue? No, they can do it through exchanges. That's perfectly fine. On which price you think you can push the price? On which price you think they can push the price to only based on all USD? $1, $2 based on USD, but it depends on how much they use RLUSD. What I was going to say is, well, how you doing? Sorry, I'm late. Don't worry about it. I'm doing good. Let's go with us. Why? Here we go. Is stablecoin regulation the one who are done now? Stablecoin regulation is only done within the EU regulations in terms of the MiCA regulations. So we do have stablecoin regulations in the EU, but it's not to a full extent, but it is in place in some sort of an extent. And Russia has some sort of stablecoin regulations as well. The UAE has some sort of regulations for stablecoins. Hong Kong has some sort of regulations for stablecoins as well. Singapore has some sort of regulations for stablecoins. But in general, the G20 countries will be under the same path when it comes to stablecoin regulations. Every single G20 country signed a declaration to be on the same sets of rules with some minor changes based on different jurisdictions, back in the previous G20 summit that happened in New Delhi. Last year in the G20 summit in New Delhi, G20 countries signed the same declarations to be on the same sets of rules in terms of regulations for cryptocurrencies. They said that how they compare cryptocurrency regulations should be how they see the planes in the sky. And what they mean by that is how every plane inside the sky has the same rules for every country should be the same thing for cryptocurrencies, where every cryptocurrency has the same rules between every country, between G20 countries. And they all signed a declaration in New Delhi to be on the same sets of rules. So the stablecoin regulation that's going on in EU will be very similar in other G20 countries, in the UK, in the US, Canada, Australia, and so on and so on. So G20 countries will be on the same set of rules. Whatever gets implemented in the EU is pretty much in the rest of G20 countries as well, with some minor differences. Now, on the other aspects of what happened after the G20 summit, after the G20 summit meeting, about 2 months after, the bank managers of the G20 countries met in Morocco to sign another piece of document. So the centralized banks of G20 countries are also under the same page as well. You don't have, let's go to the next question. Let's see where we are. Stablecoins end of year, bankerism. You don't think a crash or recession will happen? Possibility is an outcome. When is the so-called black swan event? A black swan event scenario is one possible outcome. It's not the outcome in place, but it is an outcome to consider. When did the world always consider multiple outcomes, so you're never surprised on how the market plays out? Now, the market can go a million different ways, but you can always draw it down to 3 or 4 outcomes based on actual factual evidence and common sense. You can bring it down to 4 outcomes that can possibly way out to go in. When is the so-called, when did the world get rigged after World War II or something? It was rigged a very long time ago, before World War II. They will continue to move around the numbers until after the election. The only thing that will save the US is transfer to digital to wipe out some debt. I agree, Shelley. Thanks for the explanation on XRP sales. I know XRP could still be sold, but it was worried the US wouldn't pay from the outside US. No, they can still do it, even from through the US. It's amazing how people beat on XRP and other cryptos, but they never say anything about Solana crashing 11 or 12 times. It's crazy, which is a true point that GP has made. Yeah, everybody sees XRP's faults when it doesn't have any in reality. XRP was only held back due to a massive case. It's never had any faults. XRP has always operated without any issues. It's always been able to process transactions without any sort of issues. It's never had any major difficulties as a blockchain. Whereas other blockchains around XRP, you know, in JP's words as well, and which is quite factual. I mean, Solana has crashed 11 to 12 times. And the last one was 4 hours they crashed for. Nobody cared. And nobody brings up that as a fault. Ethereum is incredibly expensive, and nobody talks about that as a major fault. And Ethereum also lost a partner for being too expensive on fees. Ethereum has a partner called by the name of Vero Wallet, which used a partnership with MasterCard to give out bank cards to people, the regular people, to use on a daily basis. They realized that having Ethereum as a partner and being partnered with MasterCard at the exact same time was not cost effective in any sort of a way, because the fees were too expensive when people use the bank cards. So they dropped Ethereum as a partner. And nobody talks about the faults of Ethereum inside the crypto space, how it's too expensive and makes genuinely no sense. And why is it too expensive? And why is it every update they do doesn't fix the issue of Ethereum's costs? The second thing is the person from MetaMask, Consensus MetaMask, he came out and said that Ethereum is for rich people, and if you think it's too expensive, it's because you can't afford it. That is the most pathetic thing you can say as a CEO of a company or a board member, to come out and say, basically, if you don't use Ethereum, it's because you can't afford Ethereum. No, if you use Ethereum on a daily basis and pay ridiculous fees, you're a moron. It's not because you can afford it or you can't afford it. No, you're a moron. Because if I go to buy something for $20 and I have to pay $100 in fees, I'm a moron. It doesn't make me rich. It doesn't make me look impressive. It doesn't make me look intelligent. No, I'm a moron. If I buy something that's $20 in a shop, pay $100 in fees because of congestion charges, that doesn't make me look intelligent or wealthy. It just makes you look like a moron. So nobody points out other cryptocurrency projects' faults at all. Solana crashed 11 times, last time 4 hours, nobody cares. Ethereum's too expensive on transactions, nobody cares. Bitcoin gets staggered most of the times, nobody cares. I can go on for days and name faults after faults after faults on different crypto projects, but nobody cares. But the moment you talk about XRP, a project that has 0 faults, everybody cares. Isn't that interesting? a project that has zero faults, a project that is, essentially with the bag of international settlements, a project that was stopped by a lawsuit, missed out bull markets, still remained in the top 10, and everybody faults it. Anytime they fault it. But there are projects around it that can't operate properly, or too expensive, or too slow, and nobody cares. So facts on what JP said. So it seems like this year we won't see movements. No, we'll see some movements, don't worry about it. Not over 5 years and definitely over 10 years. Don't worry. Why XRP has a lot of confusion and not pumping? Well, it's because a lot of people listen to wrong information. That's where confusion starts to come out of. Why XRP? Yeah, I missed your response to my comment about other ways to sell in the US. Yes, they can still sell it for exchanges. When will XRP pump soon and get dumped again? Well, we have to wait for the confusion to stop, and we have to wait for the time period for Ripple to pay the fees off. After that, we should be in the clear. When did you think it will become rigged? When did you think it would become rigged? It became rigged before the war. Hi, Miles and family. Alex, good to see you. How you doing? When we started paying tax, possibly. Miles, will the regulations and adoptions happen this year for XRP? I mean, the other two green lights. Okay, the other two green lights that are left for XRP is the regulation and the adoption. Before the adoption, due to Ripple's clientele, which is banks and institutions, we need regulations. And if we're going to get regulations, we're going to get some regulations this year by the end of the year, and the rest should be in by the beginning of next year. I'm sick. Yes, why do people hate on XRP? It's bizarre. What a waste of time and thing to do. I'm sick of the haters. Actually, facts. I feel like what you're saying, we won't be seeing big movements this year. No, we're going to see movements. Don't worry. When the Fed was introduced, it all operates. It's all about how fast things move, which they're moving incredibly fast, actually. When the Fed was introduced, the CIA started, or the CIA started. Both. Too many people have to see it, believe it, versus believe it before they see it, have some kind of faith. People in XRP, they don't come in this far for nothing. Facts. What Happy Pisces said as well. Facts. Now, but which movement we'll see? The 1 to 5 is still on the books. Now, because we still have time until the end of the year, don't worry. Based on what? Based on we have some regulations in place, and based on after Ripple pays this fee. Now, groundbreaking news. Because regulations come end of this year, and adoption also end or beginning next year. Well, no, regulations are coming this year. They're coming this year. Depends on which jurisdiction you're talking about. But they're coming this year. They'll be finishing by the beginning of next year. But if you have some in place and some movement happening, you'll see that small price point happening. Hi, Miles and the CMF family. Is it time to turn on my CMF TV? Good to see you guys. How you doing, Theodore? How you doing? No, but below that 1 to 5 ratio is still in place. Groundbreaking new offer for Bitcoin from the US platform. This is actually quite an interesting bit of news regarding Bitcoin. So US policy group, USBTC, has proposed a Bitcoin tax-free zone to simulate the US economy. Bitcoin could reshape the US economy with this new offering, is what they're suggesting. At this point, USA BTC presented a bold proposal to establish a tax-free digital economic zone. They're calling it a DEZ for Bitcoin in the US. This proposal aims to make the country a world leader in digital economy while preserving the key role of the dollar. According to the proposal, this zone will allow Bitcoin to be bought and sold and accumulated without capital gains tax. However, taxes will be applied when converting the Bitcoin back into traditional currencies. Arguing that it is both impractical and particularly challenging for the government to purchase Bitcoin, the USA BTC therefore proposes the establishment of the DEZ. According to USA BTC, a DEZ would both generate revenue for the government through an exit tax on the conversion of Bitcoin into traditional currencies, and could attract more investors by offering a tax-free capital gains on Bitcoin. Under this proposal, traders will not pay capital gains tax on Bitcoin transactions within the DEZ. However, they would pay taxes when they convert Bitcoin back into fiat, in other words, back to dollars, potentially creating a new source of revenue for the federal and state treasuries. USA BTC said it believes that this tax-free zone initiative can secure America's financial future by harnessing the potential of Bitcoin and creating a resilient and innovative economic environment, while preserving the central role of the dollar. USA BTC also stated that this initiative will emulate the threat of Bitcoin being used as a weapon by foreign countries that do not have American interests in mind. USA BTC plans to begin the implementation of this phase in 2025 and expect the DAZ to be fully operational by 2026, pending all necessary statutory and regulatory approvals. So we might be having a tax-free Bitcoin scenario inside the United States. Now, they are talking about and saying they could be implemented 2025 and be operational by 2026, but it could also happen sooner as well as a possibility. But the whole idea of just tax-free digital assets makes a lot of sense. It does get more people into it, especially if they're picking and choosing cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is a good start, but obviously expanding into other cryptocurrencies will also be a better choice as well. But the idea of a tax-free cryptocurrency is very appealing. And it's good that they're starting to think about these things, because a long time ago they weren't. So it's good to see that they're thinking about these things. So tax-free cryptocurrencies would encourage more investors, will put USA on the map in terms of blockchain technology. These are all positive things to see that governments are thinking about of implementing as laws. So this is a good step forward, genuinely. Now, it seems like the US Federal Reserve is aiming for a crypto bank. A crypto-friendly bank ordered by the Fed to limit risk from digital asset clients. So crypto-friendly bank, customer bank, has now went under fire for basically handling too much cryptocurrencies for their clients. And they do have a very big, essentially, clients to their titles as well. And we'll go through who their client base is, and also a massive part of the retail section as well. But the Fed has decided to make essentially customer banks their next target of a cryptocurrency bank they're going after. Now, the previous one was essentially Silvergate, and that scenario didn't go too well. Now, customer banks, which has done business with several of the most prominent crypto firms, has been called out by the US Federal Reserve for essentially policing illicit activities, particularly with digital asset clients. An enforcement argument signed by the bank's top executives, the Fed noted significant deficiencies related to the bank's risk management policies and practices and compliance within the applicable law, rules and regulations relating to anti-money laundering. Customers bank clients list has included top names such as Galaxy Digital. Galaxy Digital has been using this bank. Coinbase has been using this bank, and Coin has been using this bank, which is massive. So Coinbase and Circle and Galaxy Digital are using this bank. And this is a bank that's now being targeted by the US Federal Reserve, which is not great in any sort of way. Now, in a wake of last year's tech bank crisis that saw the demands of leading banks serving crypto customers, such as friendly institutions, has been difficult to find in the US banking sector. But Customers Bank had already shown signs of strugglings with its crypto relationships. In June, CoinDesk reported that it was cutting hedge funds activity and had capped its crypto deposits. The Pennsylvania-based lender, which is owned by Customers Bank Corp, deals only in US dollars and does not accept cryptocurrencies or make loans to support crypto activities. It offers its dozens of digital asset firm clients a real-time blockchain-based payments platform called Bank Instant Token, which is by the name of CBIT. Now, people from the retail section cannot buy CBIT. So please do not go to CMC and try to look for CBIT tokens. You can't buy it. But Customers Bank was offering an instant token called CBIT to its institutional clients. And it lets those crypto clients make US dollar payments around the clock. This service was highlighted in the enforcement action as well. A spokesperson for the bank didn't immediately respond to the request for a comment, but under the order, the bank has to soon provide the Fed a series of written plans and a new approach to compliance, including essentially an agreement to ensure that the banks collects, analyzes, and retains complete and accurate information for all customers. The bank must notify the Fed 30 days in advance of taking on any new streak initiatives, products, services, or relationships with third parties related to the digital asset strategies. The Fed noted that Customers Banks has begun to take measures to address the identified deficiencies. The agencies that oversee the bankings inside the US, the Fed office, and the controllers of the currency and the Federal Deposit Insurance Corp have previously issued guidance to the banks meant to limit their exposure on crypto sectors. Last year, the Fed said that it was revamping its own digital asset approach, having its new novel activities supervising program with specialized experts help the regular banking supervisors monitor the overlap of the crypto sector within the banking sector. So the new target for essentially the Federal Reserve is, ironically, a bank that works alongside Coinbase and Galaxy Digital and Circle. Now, Galaxy Digital, not so much of relevance to this matter. What does have relevance to this matter is the Coinbase scenario. Coinbase is right now battling essentially a lawsuit with the SEC, as everybody knows. And the SEC is also losing against the case with Coinbase. So the FIDC, which is also part of Operation Chokehold. If you don't know what Operation Chokehold is basically stopping innovation inside the crypto sector so the banks can still continue the rigged game they have on the monetary system. But Operation Chokehold actually involves FIDIC as well. And FIDIC is now going after a bank that Coinbase associates themselves with. And if this bank goes under fire or under massive investigations, it could halt some operations on Coinbase's side. And Coinbase is right now going into a lawsuit battle with the SEC as well, multiple lawsuit battles they have going on. So is this a coincidence that a bank that operates alongside Coinbase and Circle are going under fire by the FDIC, and the FDIC also being part of Operation Chokehold alongside Gary Gensler, and Gary Gensler is suing Coinbase? So is this a coincidence or is this a coordination type scenario going on? We're going to have to see how this plays out. But it's interesting that they've particularly chosen a bank that's working alongside Coinbase. Is it on purpose, or is this bank really doing something dodgy? In reality, none of these banks, these crypto banks, are actually doing anything dodgy. In fact, the traditional banks are doing more dodgy behavior than any crypto bank that's came out of, in the recent months or in the recent years. Traditional banks have been doing dodgy behavior since the day they opened their doors until now. But it all seems seems like it's coordinated. People that are part of Operation Chokehold are going after a bank that Coinbase operates with, and Operation Chokehold on the other side is suing essentially Coinbase. Coincidence or coordinated? Now, Franklin Templeton. Franklin Templeton unveils US money fund on a particular blockchain. Now, for a while now, Franklin Templeton has revealed that they are, have their own on-chain, their own essentially US government money fund by the name of FOBXX. And here is the reveal of which blockchain it's on. So Franklin Templeton unveils US money fund on ARB. Franklin Templeton, a global asset management company, launched its on-chain US government money fund on ARB. The ticker is ARB, arbitrary in other words, the leading Ethereum Layer 2 blockchain. The global asset manager introduced essentially FOBXX in 2021 as the first and only US registered fund to leverage a public blockchain for transaction processing and share ownership records. FOBXX initially launched on the Stellar Layer 1 network and later expanded to Polygon network in April 2023. Steve Goldfeder, CEO and co-founder of Off-Chain Labs, the core contributors to Arbitrum, expressed excitement about the partnership, stating that Franklin Templeton's commitment to innovation aligns with our mission to provide scalable and efficient solutions for the financial sector. We are excited to see Franklin Templeton join the Arbitrum ecosystem and look forward to the transformative impact that participation will bring to our community. The Arbitrum collaboration is a strategic move. As per reports, the decision to launch FOBXX on the Arbitrum aligns with Franklin Templeton's broader strategy of embracing decentralized finance. This collaboration is expected to accelerate the integration of DeFi within the traditional financial sector and services, providing a seamless experience for investors who wish to gain exposure to blockchain-based assets. They also went on to say, expanding into the Arbitrum ecosystem is an important step on our journey to empower our asset management capabilities with blockchain technology, said Roger Baston, head of digital assets at Franklin Templeton. We are enthusiastic about the opportunities this partnership will unlock for our firm and our clients. Investors can now access FOB through the Benji investment platform, where they can manage their investments using digital wallets. The platform integration with Arbitrum allows investors to utilize the network upon request, subject to eligibility requirements as well, raising importance of on-chain treasuries. The launch of FOBXX on Arbitrum comes at a time when on-chain treasuries are experiencing significant growth. According to data, the market cap of the chain treasuries has surged by 146% in 2024, reaching $1.89 billion. FOBXX has contributed to this growth, with its market cap increasing by 26.7% since the start of the year. Now standing at $412.7 million, it ranks as the second largest on-chain treasury fund, behind only BlackRock's USD Institutional Digital Liquidity Fund, iBuild, which has reached a market cap of $510.3 million since its launch back in March 2024. So, what's actually happened is Franklin Templeton has decided to jump around between multiple chains and choose which one works out the best for them. So they started with Stellar, and then they moved on to Polygon, and then they moved on now to ARB. And is ARB going to do well because of this new partnership, essentially, and they are extremely ecstatic about it? Is ARB going to do great with this partnership that Franklin Templeton has just launched? Yes and no. Okay, the reason why this partnership is going to be a good positive perspective for ARB is if they stick with ARB. Knowing Franklin Templeton, they do tend to jump around from blockchain to blockchain. So if they stick with ARB, yes, it's great news for ARB token. On the other hand, if they're going to jump around again, then no. So is this good news for ARB? Yes and no. If they stick with it, yes. In the long term, it's very good news for ARB. Without a doubt, it's extremely good news for them. In the long term, if they stick with them. If they don't, then they're going to change to a different, essentially, chain. Now, El Salvador, which, by the way, is major news regarding Franklin Templeton. Now, El Salvador. El Salvador didn't have a good relationship with the International Monetary Fund. You see, the International Monetary Fund multiple times asked El Salvador to essentially drop their whole Bitcoin scenario, Bitcoin reserves, Bitcoin country, drop this whole venture. And the International Monetary Fund, asked them a lot of times to do this and just drop the whole Bitcoin idea. And they decided not to. El Salvador rejected every single time the International Monetary Fund said, stop with the whole idea of Bitcoin. They rejected it back to back. Until now. And I'm not saying El Salvador is going to drop Bitcoin. I'm not saying that. But they decided to open their doors to the International Monetary Fund. Something that I said a very, 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 very long time ago was that essentially you can't reject the International Monetary Fund. No matter what you do, no matter who you are, no matter if you're a president, a prime minister, that's a bit weird. There we go. No matter who you are, wait, I just put my iPhone in charge on the camera, but no matter who you are, you can't reject the International Monetary Fund. If you're a president, or prime minister, or has how powerful you think you are, you can't reject their ideologies. You can't reject the International Monetary Fund, you can't reject the World Economic Forum, and you can't reject the Bank of International Settlements if you want to be someone as a high-profile seat of running a country. So it seems like El Salvador has come to that conclusion as well, because they decided to listen to the International Monetary Fund. Also, El Salvador doesn't like the idea of CBDCs. Remember that. But the International Monetary Fund is forcing countries into CBDCs. You see, Philippines had the same scenario going on, and so did Vietnam, and so did Indonesia. They had the same scenarios going on, where they rejected the idea of CBDCs. They said, our countries don't need CBDCs. It doesn't make sense to have CBDCs. And in reality, it doesn't, to be fairly honest, but it's all about control. It's not really about the convenience. Every time someone sells you the idea of convenience, they're always taking something away from you to give you that convenience. So Philippines rejected the idea of CBDCs. The International Monetary Fund had a sit down with the Philippines, and then the Philippines started singing a different tune. And they started liking CBDCs. They started researching CBDCs, and now they're launching CBDCs. Same thing happened in Vietnam. They hated CBDCs, made no sense. International Monetary Fund has a sit down with them, and now they go into CBDCs. Same thing happened to Indonesia, and this could go on for a very long time. Now, El Salvador. El Salvador and the International Monetary Fund, two groups that pretty much hated each other, partner to enhance the stability and mitigate Bitcoin risk. The International Monetary Fund and El Salvador have been making strides in discussions aimed at the economic reform and addressing the risks associated with Bitcoin. As the first country to adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender, El Salvador's journey has been watched closely by the global community. When they say global community, who they're referring to is the International Monetary Fund, the Bank of International Settlements, and the World Economic Forum, who have been watching very closely at El Salvador, because El Salvador didn't want anything to do with any one of these groups. But it turns out they can't run away from them. The International Monetary Fund engages with El Salvador on economic policies. The International Monetary Fund has been in talks with El Salvador for months, but they've kept it very silent, and now it comes out, focusing on creating policies to address macroeconomics imbalances and enhance economic growth and resilience. The International Monetary Fund released a statement highlighting the progress made in these discussions. The main goals of these negotiations are to strengthen public finances, boost bank reserves, and improve essentially governance and transparencies and mitigate Bitcoin risk. Key agreements of El Salvador and International Monetary Fund partnership include improving the primary physical balance by the 3.5% GDP over the 3 years through physical essentially consolidation, primarily by essentially rationalizing the public wage bill while maintaining social and infrastructure spendings. Strengthening financial system reserves buffers is also a priority aimed at supporting private sectors, credit, and growth, thus reducing resilience on domestic financing, structural reforms while focused on enhancing governance transparency and investment climate. With legislative proposals to tackle corruption, money. Are we back? Can everybody see me? Can everybody see me? For a second, it cuts out. I think we're back. I think we're back. For a second, it cuts out, but I think we are back again. Yep, we're back. Okay, as I was saying, for international support, and when they say international support, they basically mean the Bank of International Settlements, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Economic Forum. And see international support they're getting ready for. So, addressing Bitcoin risks. Although many Bitcoin risks have not materialized for El Salvador, and the International Monetary Fund authorities agree on the need for enhanced transparency and stability. The International Monetary Fund noted that further efforts are necessary to mitigate potential physical and financial stability risks from Bitcoin projects. El Salvador made headlines in September 2021 by becoming the first country to adopt Bitcoin as a legal tender. Since then, President Nayib, essentially government, has maintained a strategy of purchasing 1 BTC daily. Revenue has been generated from Bitcoin through various initiatives, including passport and citizenship programs, converting fees and mining operations. Additionally, El Salvador has eliminated income tax for international investments to attract foreign capital and further support its Bitcoin-based essentially economy. El Salvador's collaboration with the International Monetary Fund highlights the importance of balancing innovative economic strategies with robust risk management. The focus on Bitcoin risk mitigation, combined with the efforts of strengthening policy, finances, and improving governance, demonstrates a commitment to ensuring a physical and financial stability as the global economy continues to monitor these developments. The lessons learned from El Salvador experience could influence future Bitcoin adoption and regulatory approaches worldwide. So, is El Salvador going to remain a country that is Bitcoin friendly? Most likely, yes. But is El Salvador going to remain a country that only uses Bitcoin and is a no country who's basically an anti-CBDC country? No. Very, very soon, I'm telling you right now, very, very soon, El Salvador is going to come out on the news and say they're going into, deep levels of CBDCs, in terms of deep research, or in terms of going into test phase of CBDCs. I'm telling you right now, every country that's rejected the idea of CBDCs, once they have a meeting with the International Monetary Fund, and the International Monetary Fund makes them aware that there are no options out of this, those countries tend to fold and listen to the International Monetary Fund and the Bank of International Settlements and the World Economic Forum, because they realize that money is not everything. Because I'll be honest, you can join the World Economic Forum if you buy essentially to buy into the World Economic Forum, it's $1 million, roughly. But that doesn't mean they're going to accept you, because they have money and they don't care. So it's not all about money. But what I am trying to say is that El Salvador, just like any other country, 98% of the world is in CBDCs, either test phasings or essentially research phases, test phases, research stages, or implementation to testing is going on right now. 98% of the world is in CBDCs, and that's factual information coming out of the International Monetary Fund and the Bank of International Settlements. And El Salvador has just joined the list. The only big one left is the US. And the US is also going to be in CBDCs as well. There's no running away from it. They're not going to let it happen. Now, judge approves. So one of the biggest cases inside the crypto space is one of the biggest cases inside the crypto space, ironically, is not the Ripple case or the Binance case. The OG case inside the crypto space was essentially FTX, pretty much. Well, Ripple was an OG case as well, but FTX case was genuine, criminal behavior. Ripple had no criminal behavior. Coinbase doesn't have criminal behavior. Neither did Binance, to be fairly honest. They've just operated in some sort of gray areas. But the actual criminal case that was genuinely a criminal case inside the cryptocurrency space was FTX. And FTX is back on the news. A judge has just approved that FTX has to pay $12.7 billion in settlements. And everybody thought essentially Binance paying $4 billion was a lot. Well, FTX has just came back on the news and they have to pay $12.7 billion. Now, there are also rumors going on for a very long time that FTX does have some hidden wallets going on, especially they hold a ridiculous amount of certain crypto projects. But now FTX has to hand over $12.7 billion. I'm going to go through it and we're going to talk about how possible ways this could affect some sort of market spaces, some particular crypto projects. But before we go through that, let's go inside the comment section first. See where we were at. Okay, but I hope so. It will be long. Don't worry. Why isn't Ripple pumping? The confusion that's going on inside the crypto space is the reason for it's not pumping. Nothing is a coincidence. Then it comes to the Fed. When facts, what JP said, when is the bull run? We are not that far off. Chokehold seems like a special purpose vehicle for SEC with Gary Gensler as the biggest shareholder. Facts, what Lena said. It's about a 20 to 30 second delay, Miles, between our comments and when they get to you. Thank you, Shelly, for letting me know that. BTC to below 50,000, max shorting, then takeoff. Let's go, Simon. So, judge. A judge has just approved a $12.7 billion settlement for FTX and Alameda creditors, ending a 20-month legal battle. It's just come to an end. So not only did we get the Ripple case coming to an end, but we also got the FTX case coming to an end as well. A New York judge has approved a $12.7 billion settlement plan that will see the cryptocurrency exchange FTX and its sister firm Alameda Research repay their creditors. This settlement, which is a part of a larger agreement with the United States Commodities Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, once again, not Gary Gensler or the SEC, CFTC. Even the Binance case was CFTC. Rustam Benham was the one that closed the case. Marks a significant milestone in the 20-month-long legal battle that began in December 2022. The CFTC had initiated the lawsuit accusing FTX and its former CEO Sam Beckman-Fried of fraud and misrepresentation to resolve the case. FTX and Alameda have agreed to pay the settlement that includes $8.7 billion in restitutions and $4 billion in disagreements. The approved FTX essentially plan aims to provide a 118% return for 98% of its creditors, which with claims of under 50,000 based on asset prices at the time of the exchange's bankruptcy filings back in November 2022. This payout structure has sparked keen interest, particularly among creditors who prefer a cryptocurrency payout in some sort of a way. So some investors, previous investors of FTX, want to be paid out back in cryptocurrencies. Now, the issue with that is that if they do get paid out in cryptocurrencies, depending on when they bought their cryptocurrencies and what the value is on today's numbers, they could sell, which could cause some volatile stages inside the market space. We are talking about pretty high number, $12.7 billion, which is about to be flooded back into the market. Now, if it's cash, if these investors are going to get paid out in cash, $12.7 billion is a lot of money. If these investors are going to get paid out in cash, it's a positive tone, which means they're going to have, essentially money to jump back inside the crypto market, which is great. It's positive. If they get paid out in crypto, depends how much in crypto, but if it's a lot, it could affect it if people do start selling their cryptocurrencies, depending on when they bought it and how far of a profit they made since this scenario began with FTX's case. So some investors are actually asking for cryptocurrencies in return. Some creditors essentially resisted the proposal when it was announced early in the year, arguing that the plan undervalued their cryptocurrency holdings. They cited giving the substantial 166% increase in the market capitalization of digital assets since FTX's collapse. However, the settlement comes after FTX's new management sought court approval for a customer vote on the cash repayment plans in June 2024. And notably, the court order has also permanently banned FTX and Alameda from defrauding commodities customers and prohibited them from engaging in transactions involving digital asset commodities on behalf of third parties. FTX's collapse in November 2022 had a wide-reaching consequences, triggering the bankruptcy of other firms. For instance, companies like Yield App and essentially had to shut down due to financial losses linked to FTX. Yes, multiple companies had to shut down due to FTX scenario. So why is this case also very important? Not just on the factor of its $12.7 billion. Yes, it's quite a large number. If it does get, repayments, if people do get repayments in cryptocurrencies, it could cause some sort of a ripple effect inside the market space if they do decide to sell. Some investors did make 166% on top of their cryptocurrencies. If they get paid out on cryptocurrencies, they could decide to sell, which will cause a volatile stage. Not for the entire cryptocurrency space. It shouldn't in reality, just for those particular crypto assets. Knowing FTX, their biggest bag was Solana, so that could be the most affected if people get paid out on cryptocurrencies. Now, if people get paid out in cash, it's positive because they have more money to jump back in the market. $12.7 billion, huge amount of money coming back inside the market space. Not saying all of that money is going to come back and everybody's going to jump back in. If some of those people jump back in, we're talking about big numbers of movements, of good news, positive news happening inside the crypto space. Now, putting also that to one side, why is this case important and why is it good news that's finally closed and sealed? Well, the crypto space has a lot of open cases that need to be closed for it to start moving forward. Ripple case, essentially being one of the biggest, closed, finally good, we can move forward. FTX case, closed, finally, we can move forward. The other case, which is Terra Luna, classic, essentially, Terra Luna, also closed. He's no longer, so Do Kwon is no longer going to be held up in Montenegro's where he is. He's going to be extradited to South Korea, and probably after that, he's going to be extradited to the United States. This case is getting closed, good. The other case we have left is Coinbase, which is going slightly back and forward, which also needs to get closed and start to move forward. So all of this needs to happen. Why is all this needs to happen is because institutions and banks are right now looking at these cases and they don't like the idea of these cases being open because these cases can affect, essentially trigger market movements. The FTX case can trigger market movements. Ripple's case, can trigger market movements. Coinbase's case can trigger market movements. Do Kwon's case can trigger market movements, and they don't like any of these scenarios. So they prefer for all of these cases to be closed before they start moving forward. So no random cases can trigger and damage their essentially portfolios. This is why the corporations care and the banks care about open cases inside the crypto space. They hate the idea of open cases inside the crypto space because it could trigger market ripple effects, which could damage their portfolios. See, banks and massive institutions and corporations like the idea of them being in control of triggering market reactions, not the other way around. Banks and institutions don't like random triggers that happen inside the market space when they're not in control. When they are in control, they don't mind it. But when somebody else is in control of random triggers inside the market space, they don't like it. So these open cases that are getting closed one by one is actually a positive thing. We haven't heard much from Pineapple, and one of the soap institution is he's probably dropped the soap by now inside the prison, knowing him. Now, also, if anybody that did tune in a bit late, we did talk about the Ripple scenario as well, which is, if anybody did tune late, just for on that update, if you were still confused, just a very short, simple way, Ripple can still sell XRP through its subsidiaries. Ripple can still sell XRP to institutions inside the United States. They can still do both of them. And $125 million fine is not a big deal for Ripple, and it doesn't damage their, essentially, their credit score. One person referred to, it doesn't damage their credit score at all. If it did, then their partnerships would have dropped them by now, which they haven't. So it doesn't damage their credit score. Ripple can still sell XRP through their subsidiaries as another method, which that means they don't have to file in with the SEC, and it doesn't affect their injunction. They can still sell XRP to institutions through multiple methods. And again, they don't need to refer to the SEC in any sort of a way. So there are multiple ways Ripple can get around it, which they've already been doing it for a while. So if anybody tuned in a bit late, that's what we went through at the beginning of the live show as well, that Ripple can still sell XRP to US institutions through their subsidiaries, which means they don't have to, go against their injunction or go against the SEC at all. And $125 million is not a bad fine, and it doesn't damage their credit reports in their institutional eyes. They still have massive partnerships and contracts in place, and no contracts have been dropped since the ruling has came out. And Ripple's still not going to appeal, and by the looks of it, neither is the SEC. So just that was the stop the confusion on that matter as well. And the reason why I said that is also because, sorry, Miles, I got a bit distracted just thinking about our walls going on too. Yeah. And the reason why I said those things is because we've also come slowly to the endings of this live show as well. So for anybody that tuned in late, that's what I said at the beginning. Ripple can still sell XRP to US institutions. If anybody's telling you that Ripple can't, they're lying to you. They still can within the law. Ripple can still sell XRP to US institutions through different multiple methods and through their subsidiaries. Ripple can still sell XRP to other institutions also outside the United States. Ripple is not going to damage their injunction in any sort of a way if they sell XRP. And $125 million fine is not a big deal, and it doesn't damage their essentially credit score. If somebody's referring to that, I'm not going to name who that person is or who these people are, but it doesn't damage them. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you don't have a background and you don't understand how the corporate sector operates, you shouldn't be giving out corporate opinions, even a corporate perspective. Now, those are the things that we went through on tonight's live show. So don't worry if anybody that's confused. Ripple's still in the clear, in a massive clear, and they can still sell XRP. It's all within the law, and they don't have to tell the SEC. All within the law. No more gray areas. So, and we also talked about FTX's scenario where they could be refunding people $12.7 billion. We also talked about tonight's live show regarding El Salvador and the International Monetary Fund, where they've come together, had a sit down, and we could be looking at CBDCs also coming out of El Salvador, just like any other jurisdiction out there. We talked about Franklin Templeton on tonight's live show as well, how Franklin Templeton has chosen Arbitrum essentially as their next token to be able to operate on for their own US government money fund. So ARB is the next chosen token by Franklin Templeton to be using as a public chain. We also talked about tonight's live show regarding the crypto-friendly bank, Customers Bank, that's been operating with Coinbase and Circle and Galaxy Digital. They're now being investigated in some sort of a way for illicit activities. We also talked about the groundbreaking new offer that's coming for Bitcoin from the US, where they're thinking about making Bitcoin tax-free completely inside the United States. They're thinking about implementing this law in 2025 for it to be fully operational by 2026. But they're thinking about creating a tax-free digital economic zone inside the United States, where if people buy Bitcoin, it's completely tax-free. But when you go to sell it and change it back into US dollars, you have to pay taxes. But as long as you keep it in Bitcoin and spend it in Bitcoin, it's tax-free. We also talked about the Solana situation. Is Solana going to get an ETF in Brazil? It's possible because the filings have already been done for an exchange on Brazil, which is by the name of B3. Now, B3 is the same exchange that BlackRock is registered on to sell Bitcoin ETFs, and it's the same essentially platform that Solana ETF has been filed in to register for, B3. We also talked about tonight's live show regarding the financial situation as well, regarding the two senior Fed officials that have came out with their perspectives and commented on the US economy as well and how they think the US economy is going to go forward. And their perspectives was quite mixed. And I give that my perspective that a US recession doesn't make sense during voting periods After voting, makes sense if they want to put into a recession, but during is essentially a voting period, doesn't make any sort of sense to go into any sort of recession, because it makes the administration that is right now going on look bad, and I don't think they're going to make their own administration look bad in any sort of a way. Now, the idea of a recession is still not out of the way, but I don't think it's going to happen when it's voting season. So we're a bit far off, and they can move around the numbers as well. So we have come to the endings of tonight's live show. If you enjoyed this live show, drop a follow, drop a like, and tune into it every single night. You can tune into tomorrow's night as well, and the next day and the next day. Every single night you can tune into this live show where I tell you the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrency, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. And this is episode 122. So 122 episodes I've done right now, back to back, every single day, bringing you recent news that's happening around the world in terms of politics, CBDCs, cryptocurrencies, AI, regulations. And we also have a Telegram group as well for this live show, which anybody's more than welcome to join. It's completely free. It's called the CMF Telegram, the Crypto Mouse family, which is CMF, which is the name of this live show as well. It's completely free. Anybody's more than welcome to join it. The link is on my YouTube if you watch this on YouTube. The link is also on my X profile. If you click on the link on my X bio, you can see the Telegram link and join the group. We only have one rule: just respect everybody. In other words, and it's completely free. Anybody's more than welcome to join it. Also, thank you to our sponsors as well. If you want to, you can join on the crypto exchange BingX. So BingX is offering users of this live show $100 for anybody that signs up to BingX exchange. Now, BingX exchange is also the official partner of Chelsea Football Club, and they're also, essentially partnering me with this live show as well. And anybody from this live show can join up to BingX exchange and get 100 USDT to trade with, and multiple other awards and so many programs they're putting up for people from this live show. So go and check out BingX exchange as well. Get $100 to spend on cryptocurrencies and tradings. And then the link is also, I've tweeted out the link as well for this live show for the BingX exchange. And also Tangem is another partner of this live show as well. Use code CryptoMiles on Tangem and get 10% off as well. So thank you to Tangem, and thank you to BingX exchange as well for these massive, essentially, partnerships that they've done and helping out everybody in this live show as well. And more partnerships to come soon to give you more opportunities and more discounts on this live show if you're inside the crypto space. So if you enjoyed this live show, drop a follow, drop a like, and tune into it every single night. It's called the Crypto Mouse Family. It's called the CMF live show. And let's go to the comment section. Thank you, Miles. Good night. See you tomorrow, Mike. See you tomorrow same time as usual. Good night, Miles. And to all the CMF, thank you guys for the great live. Let's go, JP. See you tomorrow about the same time as usual. Thanks for everything, Miles. Take care. Oh, Ray. See you tomorrow same time as usual. Good night. Thanks for all the good night. Woodhouse. See you tomorrow same time as usual. Thank you a bunch. Have a good night. Lena. See you tomorrow same time as usual. Bye. Woodhouse. See you tomorrow same time as usual. Free Feather. Good night, Miles and CMF. See you tomorrow same time as usual. I'll see everybody tomorrow. I private message you on your Telegram to get your opinion about a business. Is it time to turn off my CMF TV? Yes, it is. And I'll reply to your Telegram message. Apologies. Do you know how many have signed up, Miles? Thanks for clarifying the XRP BS. You should put a tweet on X to clarify and share the truth. Good day and night to CMF. Shelly, see you tomorrow, same time as usual. And do I know how many have signed up? I haven't checked, I'll be honest. I'll check it out. I'll see everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you are around the world. CMF and everybody else watching this live show, have a great day or a good night, depending on where you are around the world. See you tomorrow, same timing as usual. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow.